There is a moment, you probably know it, when the pressure behind your eyes becomes too much to hold. Your throat tightens, your breathing breaks, and then, without permission, the tears come. You fight it at first. You tell yourself to hold it together, but your body wins. And here is the strange part. A few minutes later, sometimes even mid-cry, something shifts. The weight that was crushing your chest just moments ago begins to soften. The world doesn't change. Your problems are still there. But somehow, impossibly, you feel lighter. Why does that happen? Why does crying, something that looks so much like falling apart, actually feel like putting yourself back together? The answer is buried deep inside the biology of what it means to be human. And once you understand it, you will never think about tears the same way again. Let's start at the very beginning. Your body produces 3 different types of tears, and most people don't know this. The first type is called basal tears. These are the ones your eyes make all day long, every single day, to keep your corneas moist and protected. You don't feel them, you don't notice them. They are simply maintenance, the invisible groundskeeping of your vision. The second type is reflex tears. These arrive when something threatens your eyes. Cut an onion, and your eyes detect the irritating sulfur compounds in the air. In response, the lacrimal glands fire off a flood of tears to flush the danger out. These tears have almost no emotional content. They are pure survival mechanics. But the third type is where everything gets interesting. These are called emotional tears, or psychic tears. And scientists have discovered that they are chemically different from the other two. Emotional tears contain higher concentrations of stress hormones, including prolactin, adrenocorticotropic hormone, and leucine-enkephalin, a natural painkiller. Your body, when pushed to its emotional limits, quite literally uses your tears as a biological pressure valve, releasing substances that were building up inside you at a chemical level. Think about that for a moment. Your tears are not just water. They are a cocktail of stress byproducts being physically expelled from your body. Crying is not weakness wearing the mask of sadness. It is your nervous system performing an act of self-maintenance so sophisticated that no pharmaceutical company has ever been able to replicate it. But the chemistry is only part of the story. Because what happens inside your nervous system during and after a good cry is even more remarkable. When you are under emotional pressure, when grief, frustration, or overwhelming stress begins to accumulate, your sympathetic nervous system activates. This is the branch of your autonomic nervous system responsible for your fight-or-flight response. Your heart rate climbs, your muscles tense, cortisol and adrenaline flood your bloodstream. Your body is preparing for a threat, even if that threat is invisible, even if it is a broken relationship, a terrible loss, or the simple unbearable weight of too many hard days in a row. Crying interrupts this cascade. Research has shown that after emotional crying, the parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest system, the biological opposite of fight or flight, begins to take over. Heart rate decreases, breathing slows and deepens, muscle tension releases. The body moves from emergency mode back into something closer to equilibrium. You don't just feel emotionally better after crying. You are physiologically different. Your body has shifted states. This is why the feeling after a deep cry is often described the same way across cultures, across generations, across completely different types of people. Exhausted, but strangely calm. Emptied, but somehow cleaner. Like a storm that passed and left the air feeling new. Researchers at the University of South Florida conducted a study in which participants tracked their emotional state before, during, and after crying episodes. What they found was layered and fascinating. In the immediate moment of crying, most people did not feel better. They felt worse. The peak of distress often lands right in the middle of tears, not before them, but in the hour that followed, and even more so in the day after. The majority of participants reported significantly improved mood. The temporary intensification was actually part of the process. Crying was not a sign that emotions were spinning out of control. It was the mechanism through which the system was finding its way back to balance. there is also something almost alchemical that happens in the social dimension of crying. Tears, unlike most other physiological stress responses, are visible. You cannot see someone's cortisol spike. You cannot observe their sympathetic nervous system activation, but tears you can see. And evolutionary biologists believe this is not an accident. From the earliest stages of human development, tears have been a powerful social signal. They communicate distress, vulnerability, and the need for connection. When we see someone cry, genuinely cry, not performatively, something ancient activates inside us. Empathy systems engage. Mirror neurons fire. We feel drawn toward the person, not away from them. Crying is, in a very real sense, one of the most powerful tools of human bonding that evolution ever produced. Studies have shown that people who suppress their tears in social situations are perceived as less authentic and harder to connect with. Meanwhile, those who allow themselves to cry in front of trusted others often report feeling dramatically more supported, more understood, and more connected after the fact. The tears functioned as a bridge, an invitation for someone else to step closer. And here is where it gets even more nuanced. Not all crying produces the same result. Research consistently shows that context matters enormously. Crying alone in a supportive, quiet environment tends to produce more relief than crying in a public space where self-consciousness kicks in. Crying about something specific, a real grief, a named frustration, tends to be more cathartic than unfocused crying that has no emotional anchor. And crying with a sense of narrative, with some beginning, middle, and forward movement, produces more relief than crying that feels endless, circular, and without resolution. What this tells us is that the quality of the cry matters. Tears without reflection are less powerful than tears that are given space to mean something. Your body initiates the process. Your mind determines how far it goes. There is a concept in psychology called emotional processing, the idea that feelings are not problems to be solved, but experiences to be moved through. When you avoid crying, you are not preventing the emotion. You are suspending it. You are holding the door closed against something that is trying to pass through. And the longer you hold it, the more pressure builds behind that door. The emotion does not disappear because you refuse to feel it. It waits. This is why many therapists describe suppressed grief as having a texture, dense, heavy, often manifesting as anxiety, numbness, or low-grade chronic tension that the person cannot quite explain. The body keeps the score. As one famous researcher put it, unfelt feelings do not evaporate. They settle into the nervous system and take up residence. When you cry, really cry, without distraction, without apology, you are opening the door and allowing something to move through. The pressure equalizes. The nervous system completes a cycle it began, and in that completion, there is relief. There are cultures around the world that understand this instinctively. Ancient Greek tragedy was built around the concept of catharsis, the idea that watching great suffering on stage and weeping with it purified the audience, cleared away emotional buildup, and left viewers feeling renewed. Aristotle wrote about it. Audiences experienced it. And 2,500 years later, neuroscientists are finding the biological mechanisms that explain why it worked. We go to sad movies sometimes not to be entertained by sadness, but to borrow it, to find a container for emotions we could not cry about in our own lives. The movie gives us permission. The story gives our tears a shape, and we leave the theater feeling something we did not expect. Better. This might be the most quietly important thing to understand about crying. It is not a malfunction. It is not a failure. It is not something to overcome or minimize or be ashamed of. It is, in fact, one of the most sophisticated pieces of emotional engineering that the human body contains. A stress management system, a social bonding tool, a chemical reset mechanism, a physiological bridge between overwhelm and equilibrium. The next time the pressure behind your eyes becomes too much to hold, and there will be a next time, because you are human, and this is what humans do. Try, if you can, to stop fighting it. Try to give it space instead of an exit. Try to stay present inside it rather than escaping as fast as possible, because your body knows what it is doing. It has known for a very long time, and the lightness that comes afterward, that quiet, exhaled, finally able to breathe feeling, that is not the aftermath of weakness. That is what healing feels like.